Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the fourth webinar organized together with the TransArtists and the i-Portunus Consortium of Izolyatsia, Goethe Institute Brussels, and Institute Français. It is our pleasure again to welcome you and to be able to answer all of your questions about the current open call from i-Portunus about cultural heritage. As maybe some of you have noticed, also parallel there is an open call for music, but we already did a webinar beginning of February with focus on music, so today we will be focusing on cultural heritage. A part of all of you that are joining us directly on the Zoom link, I would like to say that we are streaming live as well on the TransArtists Facebook page. And we are streaming live on Izolyatsia Facebook page. On Izolyatsia Facebook page, the webinar is simultaneously translated in Russian. For the participants here in the Zoom link, please do ask your questions in the Q&A section of Zoom, while for all the rest who is watching us either on the TransArtists Facebook or Izolyatsia Facebook page, you can also ask your questions in the chat and they will reach us, and I will share them with our participants today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the program of today. For beginning, we'll have Oksana Sarzhevskaya-Kravchenko, who's director of Izolyatsia, and she will give a presentation about the current open call for cultural heritage and about all the practicalities and info around applying. Afterwards, I'm happy to say that we have Elien Doesselaere from FARO, which is an organization in Belgium working with cultural heritage and as well with different libraries, archives, and organizations that focus on intangible cultural heritage. She will do a presentation about intangible cultural heritage, what is it and what's in it for you. And our last presentation today will be from a beneficiary of the i-Portunus scheme in 2019, and that is Maija Rudovska, who is independent curator, researcher, and art critic, and she will tell us a little bit more about what she did with the grant that she received from i-Portunus in 2019. We reserved around 35 minutes for Q&A, so from all of you, feel free also during the presentation to ask your questions, although we will answer them in the last 35 minutes. We also have extra support for that in case we have a lot of questions. So Mikhailo Duboki from Izolyatsia is here, as well as Fanny Roland from Institute Français and Elisa Shudin from Goethe Institute Brussels, who will be here to help in answering all of your questions. So again, I would like to welcome you all and now give the word to Oksana, who will tell us more about the current open call. Oksana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bojana. I will try to be more specific as I could, and I'm going to share the presentation. My task is to give you practicalities, how to apply in the best way. I'm sure that you will have some kind of questions, and we will try today to help you to find the answers and help you to make your application easiest as we can. First of all, let you tell that i-Portunus is a second tour of pilot, and we are trying to be simple and easy for application form. I suggest to go to the next slide. Let's talk about what is i-Portunus. i-Portunus is the program for mobility, which will help you to find the finances for covering your mobility. It means transport of yourself not the transportation of the art objects. It's only about yourself. It's about your accommodation. It's about your per diem. Unfortunately, it doesn't cover all your expenses, but nevertheless, it can help you to obtain up to 3,000 euros for your mobility. And talking about i-Portunus in general, we were based for this project on the operational study we done together with On the Move. And on this slide, you can see that this operational study can be downloaded if you are interested in from the i-Portunus webpage. So the next one. About the mobility, you need to be sure that you will travel inside 41 countries, which are working together with the Creative Europe program. I emphasize that United Kingdom is eligible for i-Portunus in this season. So we are happy to announce this because for some of Creative Europe projects already, United Kingdom is not eligible, but it doesn't come as a rule for i-Portunus. Next one. So in this season, I mean 2020-2021, we have 5 open calls, and one of the calls is about culture heritage. And today we will try to develop and try to explain you how to be better in your application. Next one. As I already told you, the financial support will cover your per diem transportation. It means your tickets, or for instance, the fuel, if you will travel by your car, and your per diem. And you will know that for each country of destination, we have a strict amount of per diem amount per day. It varies from 60 to 80 euros per day. And it is calculated depending from the duration of the mobility, of your mobility. Next one. So you can apply till 15th of April, and you will be notified about the results of your application till May 16th. The earliest date of departure will be July 16th, and you are allowed to travel till the 30th of November this year. We totally understand that maybe facing not the easiest time with COVID, the trip duration is maybe not enough, but please take in the account that we are still pilot. We try to develop the best way how to work, especially in such not easy circumstances. And yeah, maybe I need to explain that still understanding all the uncomfortable situation with COVID, we have 3 options how to deal with your mobility in case that you faced some COVID case. We explained all these situations in webpage. It is in our rules, and I will explain it again. So at first, for instance, when you will we're thinking to start your mobility, for instance, in August 1st, and you couldn't start your mobility, you need to notify our consortia about these circumstances, and you can postpone your mobility plan in the duration that it can last or end it till November 13th. Then you can develop, you can, for instance, as a second option, change the place of destination. And as a last option, when it's like in a case when no other options can be settled, then you can develop the blended mobility. But in any case, all the changes towards your actual mobility plan, you need to inform us as contracted authority, which will sign the contract with you as a beneficiary of the grant. Next one. Please note that you can start your mobility after July 15th till November 13, and your duration of the mobility can be between 7 and 60 days. Maximum grant per person is €3,000. For instance, if you are applying with group application, it means that each participant of the group can apply for a maximum grant per person up to €300. And each participant will obtain separately the amount. Next one. To send the application, we are asking you to apply via my i-Portunus. This is online cabinet where you can register and fill the online application. It's easy. All the questions you can find in our detailed description on the web page. And only be sure that you have the documents you need to upload for your application. It's your CV, it's your invitation letter, and it's the signed document named Declaration of Honor. Next one. Yeah, and we are trying to be more simple as we could. So that's why we have simple application form, very easy calculated budget, which contains only from maximum amount of €350 for transportation. And then you need to calculate your days of mobility. And in that way, you will calculate how many money you need for your travel. And then after you will complete your mobility, you need to upload the report, and it's the same in a very easy way without very strict forms. So you need only to discover how you fit the project, how you made your mobility and how you used the money, but without some very difficult explanations. So very easy, and with some supporting documents like photo, videos, and if you can upload some links on your project, it will be perfect. Next one, please. So for this call for culture heritage, we are inviting artists, creators, and culture professionals which are aged 18 plus and active in the field of culture heritage. So if you are living or have the residence in a creative Europe country, and when you are willing to come to another creative country for your project, so it's a mobility for you. And in this call, you can make your application with a group up to 5 people. Next one, please. Yeah, I suggest the next one. We often have the questions about the mobility, and we explain that mobility in the duration of 7 and 60 days can be either continuous one or segmented. With continuous mobility, it's very easy in description, because when you are studying your mobility, it can be from 7 till 60 days as one round trip or one multi-destination trip, when you travel from one country to another, not stopping your mobility and not coming back to your country. With a segmented mobility, it's a bit another story. When you are, for instance, when you will travel, I will take as a sample the Ukraine. For instance, you will travel from Germany to Ukraine 2 times for duration 5 and 5 days, because the duration of each travel in this case can't be less than 5 days. So in this case, you can travel, for instance, 2 times with 5 days each trip, or you can travel, for instance, to Ukraine for 5 days, then come back to your country, then to come to another country, and to another one with coming back to your country or not. So in this case, only one situation will be very important for you, that unfortunately the costs for transportation are not doubled or tripled. It's only about the maximum amount of 150 euros. Next one. And speaking about the main objective of your mobility, we developed 3 main objectives. It can be international collaboration, it can be production-oriented residencies, or it can be professional development. Speaking about culture heritage, the variety of options, even in these 3 objectives, can be very broad. So it's about your plans, it's about your project, it's about your idea for what you're willing to work with during your project. And next one. Yeah. Very ask you to think about the questions, because our task of today is to be a help tool for you for making your application better, and to help you be more successful with the application form. We will have a look on the questions, and we'll continue answering this. After my colleagues will continue some explanation and describe more about culture heritage, and will share about their experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Oksana, very much. And from what I can see, we are already receiving questions. I think you might have answered 1 or 2 during your presentation, but if we have time, we will repeat the information just in case. Now I would like to invite Elien Doesselaere from FARO, who will tell us a little bit more what is actually intangible cultural heritage. I'm sure some of you are wondering about this. So Elien, thank you.
Thank you, Bojana. I'm going to share my screen so you can see my presentation. I'm going to check, voila. A little moment, please. We will be there in a second. Voila, whoops. Hello, everybody. I am Elien Doesselaere. I am an advisor in intangible heritage at FARO. And today I'm going to talk about intangible cultural heritage. What is it and what's in it for you? On the menu, the next 15 minutes, a few words on what is FARO, and then we dive into the subject of cultural heritage. What is it? We're going to discuss 3 types, And then we're going to be in depth into intangible cultural heritage and what it can mean for you as an artist. Voila. What is FARO? We're the Flemish Institution for Cultural Heritage, and in Belgium that means movable and intangible heritage. Our mission is to support and help flourish heritage workers in Flanders and Brussels. We support heritage workers in archives, libraries, museums, heritage cells, and so on. We provide training, guidance, advice. We bring people together to learn from each other. We are putting current heritage issues on the agenda of policy and society. We also offer information through our library, our journal, and our website. So we made a little video of what we do and how we can help you.
Cultural heritage belongs to everyone, but how can we ensure a sustainable future for all these different collections, traditions and practices? And what do they mean to society today? Cultural heritage workers in Flanders and Brussels are full of potential, but they also encounter challenges. That's where FARO makes all the difference. As a hub within and outside the heritage sector, we can point your organization to the right expertise. Our experts support you with training and advice, preventive conservation, calamities, collection valuation, heritage education, acknowledging different perspectives, inclusion. We're willing to address any subject. And if we also don't have the answer, we can find someone in our network who can help you. In addition to advice and guidance, we also conduct practice-based research. We closely follow international developments and look into heritage issues currently at play in society. FARO is there for you. Together, we can make the difference. Go to faro.be and ask your question.
So that's what we do. Our core business is cultural heritage, but what does it mean exactly?
Cultural heritage.
Voila. Here you see a definition. Cultural heritage is everything that was created by previous generations that still exists today, has great value for the community, and people want to pass it on to the next generation. And I want to stress, and that's very important when we talk about heritage, heritage is something we as people label. We label objects, monuments, and traditions as heritage because we find them so important, so valuable to pass on to the next generations. So the label heritage is a result of a process. And in general, we speak about 3 types of heritage. We have immovable, movable, and intangible heritage. Immovable is heritage that you cannot move, such as places of worship, belfries, houses, castles. And I included a few examples, just like Feestlokaal van Vooruit, that's an art center in the city of Ghent, Belgium. That's an example of immovable heritage, but also the Eiffel Tower in Paris, or this industrial site of the coal mine in Houthalen, Limburg, in the eastern region of Belgium. We also have movable heritage, that is heritage that you can move. It is sometimes simple as that. Think about paintings, books, furniture, clothing, such like this manuscript in the collection of the Museum Plantijn Moretus in Antwerp, or this chair of Victor Horta, or this room in the museum house, Huis van Alleen, House of Alleen, the Museum of Daily Life in Ghent, you see here various objects that are related to our daily life: sunglasses, radio, an ancient headset, some things I cannot recognize because maybe I'm too young. And in the back, you see covers of various magazines, and this is also cultural heritage. The next category is intangible heritage, things you cannot touch, such as traditions, customs, rituals, knowledge, and skills. Intangible heritage is also a very broad term, and you have the example of shrimp fishing on horseback in Kokzijde. This is a technique whereby a fisherman on the back of a horse catches shrimps. This technique is applied on the coast of Kokzijde and Oost-Duinkerke, and is very characteristic for these city in Belgium. You also have techniques and knowledge about Afghan embroidery. Here you see a picture of Tour d'Anvers. That's a traveling workshop of Afghan embroidery by the NGO Doek. Doek is an NGO that aims for social change, and they do so by developing, sharing, and passing on textile knowledge and skills. They bring together women with various backgrounds, and together they learn from each other. They pass on knowledge and skills, in this case, knowledge and skills of Afghan embroidery. So it's not about the result at the end, but it's really about how to do so, how you can embroidery on an Afghan manner. The third example is the celebration of Dia de los Muertos. Intangible heritage is also about traditions. For example, the tradition how we commemorate our deads. Mexicans all over the world celebrate their deaths in what is called Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. And there is also a large Mexican community in Antwerp. And a few years ago, the museum sets up a collaboration with the Mexican community to celebrate this day in the museum. And among other things, artists work together on the altar of Antwerp. That's an ever-growing installation that reflects how we deal with death and loss. So that is also intangible heritage, these kind of traditions. So intangible heritage, that is knowledge, skills, customs that we practice today, and that we want to pass it on to the next generations, just like immovable and movable movable heritage. There are a few basic principles that are vital to intangible heritage that you really need to grasp in order to understand what's it all about. The first basic principle, it's all about communities, groups, and individuals. When we talk about intangible heritage, we talk about the people that has the knowledge, the people that do those practices. Without the people that care about the heritage, there is no intangible heritage. When you talk about people, you talk about ethics. So it's very important that when you want to work with intangible heritage as an artist or as a museum, you have to involve the people who recognize this heritage as part of their culture. You have to collaborate with them in a very transparent manner. That's very important when it comes to intangible heritage. The second basic principle is that intangible heritage changes and evolves over time. Another word for intangible heritage is living heritage. It's something that people do, it's something that people know, so it evolves over time. Change is inevitable in this case. And it's all about safeguarding, it's all about taking action to keep heritage alive for the next generations. Just like we need air and food and water to stay alive, intangible heritage needs action to stay alive, to be passing on from one generation to another. And that's also a very broad term. To safeguard your heritage, you can recruit new volunteers, you can develop an educational package for school children, or you can document your heritage through film and video. They are various actions, but they all are designed to keep your heritage alive for the next generations. So these three principles: one, it's all about people; two, intangible heritage is it changes and evolves; and three, don't forget the future, take action to keep it alive. To make these principle less abstract and more tangible, I'm going to tell you the story about the Japanese fashion label Suzuzan, founded in 2008, and this label uses the age-old shibori technique to make high-end clothing. So the shibori technique is a traditional Japanese textile finishing technique, and it involves refining fabrics through complicated handwork. As you can see on the picture, parts of the textile surface are tied or are sewn or are folded before they're going into the dyeing process. And when they come out and when they are unfolded, we see patterns, we see structures, we see contrast between the used colors, as you can see in the garment this woman is wearing. It's an age-old technique that is used in Japan for over 400 years. Here you see another example of this technique, and it takes several years to master it, and it's transmitted from one generation to another. But the people who possess this knowledge, I see a typo, and skills, they got fewer and fewer in number. So this technique was threatened with extinct, and here is where the label Suzuzan enters. It is founded in 2008 by the eldest son of a family who passes on this technique from one generation to another. And in order to stop the decline of the craft, Suzuzan develops new and innovative procedures and modern creations. So they use this age-old technique of the shibori to produce modern creations to make high-end clothing. Just as the founder says it, when you buy a piece of clothing, you don't pay for the garment, you pay for a piece of culture. They combine tradition with innovation, and it has the intent to place the Japanese handicraft into a contemporary context. And we see that today young people work again in the traditional way in the studio. So in order to keep this heritage alive, they combine it with the contemporary and innovative procedures. And in this way, they are able to attract young people. So the technique is passed on to the next generations. This is just one example among many of how heritage, in this case, the shibori technique, and arts, in this case, fashion, can enhance each other. So I was Elien Doesselaere. I hope this very, very short introduction on intangible heritage give you more insight in the subject, and I wish you very, very much of luck when going abroad with i-Portunus. Thank you.
Elien, although it was a short presentation, it was very concise and very informative and very helpful. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And now I would like to invite Maija Rudovska, who was a beneficiary in 2019 from the i-Portunus funding scheme. And she will tell us about the project she did or she started doing while having the grant. So Maija, the Zoom is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, you can see the screen, yeah? My presentation, sorry. Yeah, so here's the start. Thank you for inviting me, and it's my pleasure to be here and tell about my experience with i-Portunus grant. And I was granted this opportunity to do my research trips back in 2019. And it was very crucial for me because I wanted to develop few projects. And I have to tell probably a little bit about myself because I work as an independent curator. And I've been working in this way for many years already. And usually my work involves many different projects, many different partnerships. I live in Riga. I work very closely with partners from the Baltic countries, from people from here and organizations, but I also develop many projects abroad in the Nordic Baltic region, but also with like Central European organizations, and lately also going overseas and developing other collaborations and projects. And with i-Portunus support, I was able to do 2 research trips in autumn of 2019. One of them was to Rome and another one to Marseille. And I will tell more about the project that came out this research trip to Marseille, because the other one, I didn't succeed with the project for that, but the trip to Marseille was very significant for me because it gave the chance to get to know the local art scene, to develop closer collaborations with different partners from there, and to get to know the city also and people. I spent there, I just tried to remember, I think 10 days. I didn't count specifically, but yeah, I think it was around 10 days. This is usually the time that I try to spend like in one place, like to be able to understand a little bit more, you know, what is the art scene, because a couple of days, it doesn't give you the insight, and 10 days, it was enough for me. For this project, and which is why also this grant was serving very well for this stage of the project. Of course, I have to also mention that obviously I had to fundraise afterwards for the project itself, and this funding is not for that. It's more for the trip and for your aim to do something for the period that the grant allows, basically. But I would like to just go more into the project and tell you more about this experience, because it was quite incredible for me and my partners. And we developed quite extensive program in Marseille. We called it Roots to Roots. And actually the program itself was realized last year during the pandemic. And it was also quite unusual for us and quite challenging as well. And but then at the same time we managed to get through it with the local partnerships, and again, like the local partnerships was very crucial to you know, to build or to kind of work with. The project itself focuses on the concepts of identity, belonging, and home base. And we took as departure point 2 quite significant texts. One text was by Jonathan Friedman, which is called From Roots to Roots, where this title is also borrowed from. It was written back in 2002. and it discusses the kind of a new identity that people who live through this globalization and consumerist time develop when we are not anymore rooted to one place, or we don't live and work only from one place, but we are on the move constantly, and we actually develop quite some adaptive strategies and flexibility towards our work, and especially artists. And since I work in visual arts, I see that a lot, that sometimes artists can live between different cities, they travel a lot, they are on the move, and it impacts their work. And that was behind our concept, that we wanted to see how we can work with these ideas, and how our artists that we invited for this project from the Baltic countries, how they can bring them out and work together with artists and institutions in Marseille. And the project itself is also shaped around this type of collaboration, or building the bridge between North and South. It was also quite unusual for us, because we realized that for example, coming to Marseille, people don't know much about the Baltic countries, where I come from. And so we understood we have to put a lot of work into, you know, informing and building some knowledge on how our program will engage with that, basically. I will just show you more. Yeah, this is more the information you can read while I'm speaking about the project itself. We were 3 curators there, and yeah, all of us, we all come from the Baltic countries. Marilyn, my colleague from Estonia, myself, I am from Riga, from Latvia, and my colleague Juste Kostikovaite is from Lithuania. And our main funding scheme came from the Baltic countries, from the Baltic Culture Fund. So, but that was, of course, later when we did our research. And we invited a list of different artists, and I just want to maybe go more into particular examples, because it was quite important to set up a kind of a frame, or the also methods, and to understand the situation, how we can work during the pandemic with the local artists and institutions, and how we can, you know, manage this type of work where we are not always being present and not being able to, you know, to get to know the local culture that well. What I didn't mention, actually, that our program became part of Manifesta 13 parallel program, Les Parallels du Sud. And it was an interesting process, actually, to see how all that unfolded during 2020, last year, because obviously when the pandemic hit back in like March, we didn't know how it will impact our project, and we planned to go to Marseille and work there very closely with the events that we planned, and we planned a lot. We actually had very extensive programming with performances, with exhibitions, with workshops, with the screening program, and many other things. And then we had to adjust to the situation, obviously, because we understood, okay, many of our artists probably will not be able to go to Marseille and work there as we planned. So we had to come up with scenarios, instead of like canceling things or saying, okay, we are not able to do this. We set up more closer collaboration, actually, with the local art scene. And this is one of like very good examples that I wanted to show you. A pirouette performance that we did during the opening days of Manifesta, which was around at the end of August. And the opening was like, you know, there were already some restrictions in Marseille at that time. Marseille became already a red zone, whereas like elsewhere in Europe, it was still quite open. And yeah, and we did this performance in an open air, so we could do it, actually. And Lina Lapelite, the artist, maybe you recognize her name. She was one of the artists behind the performance Sun and Sea Marina, which won the Golden Lion at Venice Biennale back in 2019. And she's from Lithuania, and we all know her very well, and we wanted to show her work. And Pirouette is one of her performances that is, in a way, quite easy to set up because it involves just two people, as you see, ballerina and the saxophonist. And these two people actually came from Marseille. So it was possible to work with them, although Lina herself couldn't be in Marseille and work with them. So she did it from the distance. And this former ballerina, Valentina Pace, and saxophonist Emmanuel Recht were very open to this collaboration, and it worked out quite beautifully. You can also find this performance online on YouTube. And yeah, it's just a beautiful work that really engages the audience. And it was like a really great chance for us to show it there, because Manifesta, as you know, as an international art event that usually gathers quite like a huge crowd from all kind of countries, at that point couldn't really invite international audience because of restrictions. And we were able, like our team, we were able actually to get through with some events, and actually kind of also gain more attention actually for our programming. Another performance work, for example, this one by Maija Rudovska, Estonian artist, and the locally based dancer, performer, Lithuanian artist Dovydas Trimaitis, who works at National Ballet in Marseille. They also created a beautiful work together. And it's interesting to mention that actually this performance could not really take place where we intended it to take place, which was at Longchamps, this beautiful fountain in the center of Marseille. It was not cancelled, but in the last minute, the government came up with new restrictions. We had to move it to another location, but then at the same time, we again adjusted this kind of flexibility and thinking of like how we can come up with the more creative solutions for this, since artists have worked and you know, involved a lot of work and everything. And we did like a really beautiful photo shoot for this performance. And now we are also promoting it online through these beautiful pictures, using these beautiful pictures. And for this collaboration, for example, we had a fashion designer creating these beautiful dresses or these outfits, and she won a prize in Estonia last year. So it's, you know, like there are like many people who actually were involved in creating this. And it was also interesting for me to work in this type of project to see how we can actually create something not being there always, you know, where we want to be. Although I enjoy being physically related to the space when I work with any project. But in this case, it went in many different directions, and also giving kind of new opportunities to develop or to engage with. Here was like another thing, an exhibition by Latvian artist Darija Meņikova. She set up a bar at Salon du Salon. And Salon du Salon is a small gallery space in Marseille, quite successful, like also commercially, locally. And here we also had like several events. And it's important actually to mention that at the end of August, around like September, when our program was taking place, the restrictions in Marseille were still quite loose. So we were able actually to gather some audience. And yeah, as you see also here, like for example, we were able to do many events outside in open air. Sophie Turian, local artist, created this beautiful walk performance at the park La Barras, which is also full of stories and with very interesting history. I will not go more into that. Actually, you can check out our website afterwards, and we have our also Instagram and Facebook accounts where you can see more events. And yeah, here is another one. And just to kind of finalize more with like going through this example of the events that we did there, double exposure was a film screening like program, and it took place at you need to how you say it in French, I'm not really a French speaking person, the Le Corbusier housing unit in Marseille, which is very, very famous. And we worked there with the local collective, which is called Collective 318. And they focus on design and architecture. And they are very curious and interested in presenting artists and designers and institutions from Eastern Europe. And this collaboration fits very well for us. And so we did this film program that focused on the Soviet heritage and post-Soviet kind of space and urban space and architecture. And we presented the female artists from the Baltic countries that, gave us their film or video works to show from like different time frames, and they managed to work on them. So this was also quite important for us, because obviously we wanted to show to the local audience more about the heritage and history and visual arts from the Baltics, where we come from. That was also our aim basically for this project, to kind of promote more the context from our countries. But it also served as obviously as a platform where to build a closer connection with the local people, to get to know their culture, and to kind of develop even further networks for next projects, which is something that I usually in this frame I work usually, because that means that I kind of develop further my work and my practice, that through this networking, through this close collaborative kind of partnership net, there is like a next interest, next project I'm coming up, next idea, you know, that I want to work. Yeah, I will finish it here, but I actually forgot to mention in the beginning that the main partnerships we had were like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like around 5, 6 partnerships from Marseille. And maybe again, going back to i-Portunus, given, you know, opportunity for the trips, it's so crucial for me, you know, that, okay, this gave me a chance, you know, to go to meet people, to build these collaborations, to talk to people, you know, just to get to know the local culture, you know. And among the partnerships were the ones that I mentioned already, Collective 318, and there was Le Bureau des Guides, and then Salon du Salon, Cabanon Vertical, and we also work with the local real estate company to have a space for our exhibition project, where you saw also the performance taking place. Yeah, maybe I forgot to tell something, but this is it, and I will exit the screen. And if there are some questions, yeah, please ask me afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Maija. And this was a very nice bridge with, if somebody has questions, please do ask them either in our Q&A section on Zoom or on Facebook, TransArtists Facebook or Izolyatsia Facebook. Now we will start with the last part of the webinar, with the Q&A, and I will read some questions, and let's see, whoever from the consortium will feel like answering, please do that. Also for the participants in Zoom, as you may notice, some of the questions have been already answered in typing, and we'll see how much time we have for all the questions. Otherwise, our panelists will continue in answering some of the questions in type. I will start with the first one, with a Polish person who is living abroad, and can they apply for a project that will happen in Poland?
I will start answering this question. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So our main rule is that the mobility should be cross-border. So if you are two artists living in different countries, it is possible for you to develop one common project in another country, in a third country. But in this case, you need to have one common project. You need to come to one country in the same dates and to leave this third country at the same dates. So in this case, you will be eligible. Thank you.
Sorry, hi. Can I add something? Because I also saw a question related to that is a bit different. But for instance, Hannah asked if she can travel to Poland, being Polish. And I think yes, in the sense that the important thing, the criterion i-Portunus is your country of residency. So for instance, if you're Polish of nationality but are legally resident in another country, then you can travel to Poland because that's a different country than your country of residency. So I hope that answers also that question.
Thank you. The next question is about a group application. So it has a few sub questions. First one is, should we put individual elements into the CV, for example, where each one of the participants studied?
So it's about your description of the group. We are only asking to explain the group in the common CV description. And if you feel needable to describe the background of your studies, you can do this, but of course it will be useful to mention the praxis, the background, and you please notice that the dimension of the description is limited. You need to take care about the volume of your file. Yeah, and maybe I will come to one sub-point to the group application. It was asked about people with disability in case one of the members of group has such disability. So you need to mention this into description. And as only one person from the group applied on behalf of the whole group, you are asked to indicate this in the application that one of the group members has the case with disability. And please note that we have additional funding for disabilities, and you are asked to describe the additional cost for this case. You will be asked to bring some proofs for this case. For the disability, and once again I will notice that each group member will sign separate contract, and the person with disability in his own or her own contract then after awarding will have all the descriptions with the situation of disability.
Thank you, Oksana. That was actually the other sub-question in the question I asked. And then the last from this person is that if one of the member of the group lives in the country they are all traveling to, they understand that the person is not eligible for the grants, but should this person still be listed in the additional group members?
If it is important for your project to describe the whole group members, even if the group application, one of the group members doesn't have the cross-border mobility, you can indicate this, but please note that in this case, this person will not be funded. But it is not a problem, it's not a prohibited to indicate this person in the project description.
Thank you. I believe we answered this question, but maybe very quickly, Oksana, if one is conducting more than one trip abroad, does 350 euros apply for each time one flies, or all the flights need to fit into that amount? And then what about baggage, airport transport, intercity transport, local, and so on?
Yeah, I understand that 350 euros, it's sometimes will be not quite enough even for one trip, round trip, but unfortunately we are we have only this amount for travels, and it means the amount will not change depending from the times you will have the trips. So in case you will have 2 trips, 3 trips, etc., only the amount of 350 euro, it's only one funding you have for tickets or for your travel.
In this line, I have a few questions from Facebook. So one is, do the days of travel, if the destination cannot be reached within one day, are also covered by per diem costs? And should these days be counted in the mobility period?
Yes, you indicate the start of your travel and the end of your travel, and all these days are calculating. So from the first day, from the last day.
And another question from Facebook also about travel. We are artist collective of 2 performing artists from Amsterdam in the Netherlands, currently in India. And due to pandemic, will our travel expense from India to Serbia be covered?
So let's come back to our rules about eligibility for i-Portunus. So as this project was developed for Creative Europe countries, we are strictly limited only with the countries who works with Creative Europe program. So only 41 country is eligible between the travels between each other. So India is, as I remember, the list is not eligible in this case. But if you come, for instance, to your country of your residence, and if this country is listed in between countries of Creative Europe countries, so from that country you can start your travel and can be eligible. Please check the countries.
Thank you.
Next.
We are an association of volunteers, and we are an association, and whether volunteers are allowed to apply, or shall they have a professional status like artists or curators and so on, or can they be just volunteers?
We are asking, i-Portunus is open for artists, culture professionals who are working in a field of culture heritage. So in this case, if the volunteer has no official status as an artist, it can happen. For instance, in Ukraine, it can be so that the person can't have this official status. But if you are working as volunteer, as culture professional in the field of culture heritage, yes, you can be eligible. It's all about your status, not official one, but about what are you doing in the project. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question from Facebook is from a person who is currently not having the best internet connection. And the question is whether they will be able to ask some questions through email. which I believe it is able, but maybe
Yeah.
Oksana, you can answer better than me.
Of course, we are open for all the questions via emails, and we are like sharing the questions between our consortium members. So each of questions will be answered. You are open to send us email, and we will help you.
And the email is info@i-Portunus.eu, right? Great. Okay, next question. Is it possible to combine i-Portunus grants with ones from different sources?
Of course, yes. It is not prohibited, but only one rule in this case will be like the general rule for all the types of grants and for i-Portunus as well, that the same budget lines can't be doubled by or financed by different sources. For instance, if i-Portunus will cover your mobility, please be sure that another grant will not duplicate the same budget line. Hope I answered your question.
I'm trying to combine few questions that are more or less in the similar lines, but I will go with the first one is, are there any requirements of formality in terms of a host organization? Whether it's an artist collective or association and so on?
Not. We don't make some list of formalities in this case. We give a lot of like freedom for our applicants. In what only we are asking to do, it's to make some kind of confirmation that our evaluators can be sure, having a look on your documents, that your host part, I mean host organization or host artist, is real person or real organization, that you have some signed documentation between each other. It can be either invitation letter or some kind of letter with signatures on a official blank of organization. So it can be a person or organization or association, or it can be a festival organizer. So any kinds of organization and person can be your host, but we ask you only to provide some improvements that this is real. It's the main rule.
In this line of question, my project is about regeneration that is exacerbated by the Airbnbs, and therefore it would be unethical to stay in such an accommodation, but also hotels are too expensive. Would small family or informal bed and breakfast be acceptable as an accommodation for the costs?
We don't ask for some checks or bills or invoices from the hotels. It's about lump amount per day we are suggesting as per diem, which you can spend either for hotel accommodation or in Airbnb flat. So you don't need to collect some proofs for this. Only for tickets and transportation. Hope you found.
Thank you. There is some confusion about what is meant under official letter, and confirming meetings with the host organization. Can an email conversation be used as a proof with the host organization?
We strongly recommend to have some official letters. What means in this case, like a letter with some notes with real signatures, because as you know, email correspondence can be only a screenshot. You can screenshot the email correspondence, but better to have some letter with signature and stamp. If it is no stamp, but only a signature, and if the organization or person has the blank like information about this organization or person, it can be better to use like official Form 1.
Which already brings me. Yes, Elisa?
Sorry, can I add on this, just because there is always some confusion and we understand. So the idea, as Oksana explained, is that we require more than just a screenshot from an email. So for instance, if your host can, yes, write an official letter, or just even if not official, but an invitation letter of confirmation that, for instance, explains the plans of collaboration. So that's something a bit more official and structured than just an email. So just a letter.
Which brings me to the next question of what exactly is an invitation letter, and is there a template for it? But I believe, I'm not sure if there is a template, so there's no template, but both of you just mentioned what kind of information should be included in this invitation letter. So I'm happy that we covered that question as well. Another administrative question, will they have to provide receipts of flights, accommodation, and so on?
So we are asking only about invoices and checks or improvements only for tickets, not for accommodation. So only about your transportation, and in case you are traveling with your own car, please collect all the invoices or checks about for fuel. So this can be approved as well. Is it answered?
Yeah, I think so. I guess otherwise we will get another question, so I will let you know. One person asked whether traveling from Serbia to Kosovo is considered transnational, and if they are eligible for funding.
I already mentioned that we can confirm the mobility between one country to another, which are listed in a list of 41 countries. And Kosovo is inside this list, as I remember, and for Serbia, we need to check. In my presentation, all the countries were listed, and the same list is on a web page of i-Portunus as well.
If I can just add to that, because I checked again on the website, and indeed the two countries are indicated in the list of Creative Europe countries. So indeed, this is eligible.
Thank you, Elisa.
I think it was more politically motivated background for the question that maybe introduced some confusion, but thank you for answering it clearly. Okay, next one. I'm residing in France and have a cultural heritage project taking place in Turkey and Greece. Considering that Turkey is not a Creative Europe country and my project's round trip is France, Turkey, Greece, France, could I ask for transport support for the Turkey-Greece parts, or only for Greece and France?
In this case, you are recommended to apply only for tickets or transportation for countries which are eligible, not to come to ineligible case. And please note that all the amount for transportation is limited with the amount of 350 euro. So in this case, maybe it can help you to understand what amount of money you can spend for the trip in between country. So as in my understanding, it will this amount will be not enough for the whole trip, including the Turkey, but Turkey is not eligible.
There is one question that partly I can answer and partly I will need to rely on you. So if the question is, if we opt for production-oriented residency, does that mean we have to choose a residency from the TransArtists website, or can we collaborate with an individual artist? So I will answer the first part, which is no, you do not have to choose a residency from the TransArtists website. It can be any other residency that exists and that by some coincidence we don't have included in our database. Well, for the second part of the question, can we collaborate with an individual artist?
Sure. Yeah, sure. You can collaborate with individual artists as well. It is described in our rules as well. So it's up to you about your project. It's only about the idea how you will collaborate and how you will develop your project. Yeah.
Can church, organization, or monastery also act as a host institution?
Speaking about culture heritage, why not? As we already explained, any kind of organization and individuals can be the host. You need only to explain how it is combined with your project and why this host. So all should be explained in your project description, and in this way it can be.
Thank you. Sorry, my computer got stuck. So just a second. Yes. Another question regarding group applications. Does the group have to pre-exist or not? And if it is a group of people that meets only for this project, can the group CV and portfolio consist of short presentations of the individual participants, or should it be a common integrated portfolio for the whole group?
In your portfolio, you are asked to present all the group applicants. So for evaluator, it will be very obvious and clear how this group will collaborate and work together. You are not asked to have a common practice before, but you need to explain how you will collaborate and work in this project. So it needs to be explained that you have how you collect this group, what kind of work will be done by each of the group members. So it's up to you to present how you will work together with this group. So because if you will present only like separate participants of the group, it will be maybe sometimes not clear how this group will work and why for this project. So please explain how you will work together.
I think this could be a question for Elien. If there is any base of institutions on internet dealing with intangible cultural heritage, like TransArtists page. So is there a list somewhere that they can access where they can find institutions that are working with intangible cultural heritage?
Sorry, Bojana, I missed a crucial part of the question. Is there a list of players? I didn't get it.
Exactly. Is there somewhere online, is there somewhere available a list of organizations that are working with intangible cultural heritage that they can access?
Yes, that's a very good question. There is a list of NGOs who are accredited by UNESCO, and these organizations work on intangible heritage, but that's of course not the complete picture. So I can get the link to these lists of UNESCO, and I will check my colleagues if there is another list. If I have any time for that, can I add the list afterwards, or is there no time for such things?
We have around 10 more minutes. But
all right.
If there is time, but otherwise, if you email me the link, we can put it in the comment section of the Facebook page.
All right.
I think that would be, everybody can access it because it's open also for people who do not have Facebook, can still see, I believe. So I think that would be a good option.
Yes, we'll do that. Thank you.
No, thank you. Can one member of the group living in a different country join just for the part of the mobility? Or can we go in different places provided that that they follow the main focus of the project? I understand we need to make separate application. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm also trying to, you didn't, I'm going to read the question, but I'm also not 100% sure if I understand the question. So, can one member of the group living in a different country join only for part of the mobility?
So maybe I need to explain that our idea for group application is that group members can start their travel from different countries, but on the same date they need to be to meet in one country and end the project in this country at the same date. So in following your question, no, unfortunately, it can't be that one group member will join only for a part of the project, or you can't travel to different destinations as a group. In this case, we are recommended to apply as different people, so as individuals, not as a group. So otherwise, you can be under the rule of uneligibility. So
I think this is an interesting question, and that quite a few people might ask this themselves. Is what if you need to go into quarantine when you arrive in the country of your host? Should you include these days to the residency to be sure? For example, at the moment, self-quarantine in UK is 10 days. And can you return sooner to your country?
All will be depending from the situation. We can't answer with 100% for just now how the situation will be, but what we are asking you as applicants after the notification that you will be awarded, that you will start your travel, your mobility, and buy your tickets before 10 days of the start of your mobility, so to be sure that no COVID case will be in your situation. But definitely, if such situation will be happening during your mobility, for instance, if you have long mobility, for instance, 20 or 30 days, and such case will be happening, please notify us, and this will be explained to you under these circumstances. Because as maybe I mentioned on the beginning, we are trying to have 3 options how to work with COVID cases, and definitely we will develop more instructions before you will start your travels. So soon, by other calls, we will notify our applicants about the results, and every case and every changes to the mobility plan, please notify us as consortia, and we will connect with you and discuss the situation, how to work further. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I don't know, maybe Elisa can add something to this, but it seems that I answered this point.
Yes, I think you did. Thank you, Oksana.
Is it possible to apply just for training of cultural professionals in an institution or for a visit, or this visit has to have a collaboration in the future with that institution?
As one of the objects of your mobility can be your professional development, definitely you can apply for some trainings, because it's about your future, about your new skills, new information, and it's not a rule that you need in the future develop some kind of projects with the institution or team which where you will get this in your knowledge or training. So it's all about your new trainings or information for your development.
Thank you. Since we are close to wrapping up this webinar, I'm trying to find a question that could apply to more of our participants. So does the output of the cultural heritage project have to be intangible heritage, or can it be scientific academic output, for example, with aim of publication?
So as this call is about culture heritage, and as unfortunately our funding is limited for this season, we ask you to be more precise as you can, explaining how your project is connecting or relating the culture heritage, because honestly speaking, you will be facing a quite big competition. So in this case, you need to be to present or show how this will influence your personal development or your project, or what kinds of results will be in the end of your residency. So, and then our independent evaluators will have a look, two of evaluators will work with your application and put the scores. So please describe as much better as you can. Thank you.
Should the artistic CV cover a range of projects from the career of the artist or professional, or should it focus fully on the work related with a project that is applied to be developed during the mobility?
I recommend to describe your professional experience which is connecting to your project, because it's the most practical issue how the evaluators can work. But definitely it's quite up to you to express your experience and your background. And if you feel that some of your background or previous information about you can help or prove that your other projects can input or give additional value for this project, please add this information into your CV or portfolio. Thank you.
I also think we answered this question, but maybe as a refreshing, can additional travel costs within the host country be included?
All costs related to the transport can be collected under the transport cost. So in the amount of 350 euro. It can be done in amount of this 350 euro.
And again, do materials fall under per diem, so phone calls, batteries, library tickets, printing, and so on?
Sorry, maybe the question is not quite clear to me.
If materials, for example, the use of batteries or tickets for going into a library or an archive, can they be included into the costs of per diem?
So it's up to you how you will be spending your per diems. We don't ask for some improvements of per diem spendings. So we only, what we can do, it's like to provide you with per diems for your having been in another country, and if you feel the necessity to cover from this amount your tickets for visiting or some materials, you are free to do it, but we are not asking for some checks or improvements for this.
Thank you, Oksana. I think so that we do not step over too much from our time. I think we will conclude here. I'm happy to say we answered almost 50 questions from what I can follow from the Q&A in Zoom. And on top of that, we also had some questions from Facebook. So I think we covered quite a lot. But for the rest, I would say that, as you already mentioned, that people can write, everybody who still has some questions and questions that we didn't manage to cover in this session, that people can email to info@i-Portunus.eu for further answers. And for the rest, I believe there was just one question that would actually be good for concluding, and that was whether the project can be postponed to 2022. I think we know the answer to that, but maybe Oksana, just shortly, we can conclude with the answer for this question, if the event can be postponed in the next year.
At this time, having like the rules for 2021, we can only give the answer that we are limited with the end of the projects and end of the mobility till the 30th of November, so end of November. In case we will have another time limits, we will info you as our participants, as our potential winners. But at this time, please note the end of the projects and of the mobility as end of November this year.
Thank you. And I would like to add that thank you, Elien, for sending us the list for the organizations. We included them on our Facebook pages, and I also included them here in the chat for our participants that are here on Zoom. And once again, thank you all. Thank you to all the panelists for participating today, and thank you to all the attendees for listening to us. I hope this was helpful, and I hope that a lot of you will have successful applications, and I wish you lots of inspiration while doing the application, and I wish to the members of the consortium a lot of inspiration as well to look at these applications, although I know it's not you who are looking, but there is a separate group who is doing that. And in any case, I would like to say that this was the 4th webinar that we organized parallel with the open calls, and these are the last open calls for this year, for 2021. We will do another webinar somewhere by the end of the year, somewhere in November, to see how some projects went and how did the mobility happen, considering the situation in which we are currently living in. Stay healthy once again, stay safe, stay inspired, and I'm looking forward to hear more about the projects that happens with the support of i-Portunus. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a nice day.
Thank you.